Myself, my name is Jeff Baer, and I'm a partner at Almaz Capital in Silicon Valley. And I am currently a VC, but
Меня
I
зовут
do not
Джоффри
always
Байер.
have this
Сейчас
dishonest profession.
не всегда,
Previously,
конечно,
I
у
was
меня
a
была
CTO
такая
for
профессия
networking
сначала.
at Sun Microsystems,
Я работал в
and I was also in charge
Networking
of,
Sun
unfortunately, of
Microsystems.
150,000 node network, which started at 65,000 nodes, and
То есть я
pulling my
начал
hair
свою
out about
сеть еще
security.
довольно давно, когда
So you
еще,
can see, as an old guy now,
просто
why
я уже,
my
так сказать,
hair has
немного
turned
человек, я
white.
уже, так сказать,
It
я
is
весь
worrying
посидел,
about
когда я начал
security
15
things.
лет назад,
So
начал
my
заниматься,
goal with this
сеть
talk
безопасности
is
создавал.
to tell
Поэтому
you
моя
guys
задача
the
рассказать
areas
вам,
that are being funded
какие
now
сейчас области
by VCs,
финансируются очень серьезно
so that if you wish to pursue an
нашей
idea,
компании.
you do not
Поэтому, если вы
need to
хотите
pursue
преследовать какую-то
my
идею, если вы что-то придумать
idea.
хотите,
I'm
работать,
merely
не
giving
обязательно,
you
то есть
data
я
points
то есть я
about
уже,
those
так
things
сказать,
that are
главная
currently
задача
interesting.
это что вам
So
интересно, что вам
what do
нравится,
VCs
эти
invest
природные
in?
области,
Do they invest in a
в чем нужно
copy of
инвестировать,
something?
а во что
No.
нужно инвестировать, в
Do
копию
they invest
чего-либо,
in
или нужно
third generation of the
инвестировать в
same
третье
idea?
поколение, то же
No.
самое идеи нужно инвестировать?
Do they
Нет.
invest because
Они инвестируют,
of a
потому
marketing
что
pitch?
они
No.
хотят продать что-то
They
на
invest
рынке,
because somebody
они
is doing
инвестируют,
something new
потому что кто-то что-то
no one else has
новое
done
делает,
before
а никто ничего там
with
подобного не
world-class team.
делал. И
So
самая
I will
лучшая
try to give
команда,
you
вот
some
поэтому они
ideas
инвестируют.
about
Вот
what's
это
going on.
самое лучшее.
So from a
Возможности
perspective
именно
of
в
where we
Кремниевой
are
долине. Вот
in
в это
Silicon
они,
Valley,
вот в это они
we call
инвестируют.
this
Вот мы
eye
называем
chart
это,
because you cannot read
мы
it
это называем, так
because the
сказать,
font
таблица,
is too
которую
small.
прочесть нельзя, слишком
But the
маленький
problem
здесь
is that the
шрифт, и
press has
поэтому
not
ничего не
figured out
видно. Но
yet
здесь
that
я
we are
хочу
in a
сказать о
nightmare
том, что
scenario.
мы находимся
The
в
scenario
кошмарном
is that,
сценарии.
as you all know, professional development groups, release trains, development kits, release schedules, a professional environment exists for releasing badness. And that combating that is a mess. The mess that we have is CVEs, alerts, patch days, vendor days, Microsoft days, Android days is a mess. If I was the chief security officer for a big operation, I would be going crazy right now. If you look at Android, there are over 2,000 parameters in the operating system which can affect not only security, but integrity of the system. How can any one person know all of these parameters? And we have how many different variations of Android? Thousands. Companies have been founded just to track Android variations. That's all they do. And they got funded. So what we're seeing now is a geometric increase in attacks. If you see not only the number of attacks, but the quality of them, the most recent stat I have from April is that we reached a peak of one denial of service attack of being 170 gigabits against one target. That's a lot. That's a lot, guys. And in addition to that, antivirus and signature-based approaches, it's not they don't work, they're last generation. The threat has evolved beyond them. So it's going to get a lot worse. And we as VCs look ahead to see what is in the future. And what is in the future is Internet of Things. Every phrase in Silicon Valley is overused. Which phrase would you like? Cloud, big data, data science, machine learning, deep learning, 1,000 phrases. They are all overused. But we know that the major players are all developing very quickly APIs and systems to develop millions of sensors. So we know of companies such as Bitstu, which is in Canada. Bitstu routinely manages 8 million node networks, many of them. They do proactive monitoring of Internet of Things nodes to see if they're going to fail. They have dozens of customers. Now multiply dozens by millions with one company. So this is what's coming. We're not ready for this. We're not ready for autonomous communications. We are not ready for the fact that unintended first derivative effects of a power line disruption affecting a hospital, killing people, we're not ready for that. And of course, things like programmable logic controllers made in the 80s are still out there, and things like Shodan are my friend to find them, so you can't hide. I was talking to a guy who knows way more than me about security, and his name is Eric Martin. And Eric is the chief, until recently, was the chief security officer of PayPal and eBay. And he certainly deals with security on a daily basis. And what we were talking about is, while all of us focus upon technology as a solution for security issues, The real problem from the corporate side is, do you know any company which implements security as a feature of the company DNA? How they operate the company? How they every day process and practice information security? I don't know of very many. So which startup companies practice this? More about that in a minute. I'm going to close at the end of this with which companies have the worst security in the world. You can guess. So what Eric Martin says is, where is the company response book? Where is the pre-planning, the staging? Because when someone is actually inside the network and they're savaging and beating on you, it's too late to make a plan. And the wrong guys to send to solve the problem are engineering guys. They're like all of you and me. We look, that is really a cool thing, you know, it's nice. Meanwhile, the information is sailing out the door. The problem is not an engineering problem. It is one of public relations, trust, and insurance. No companies deal with this well, except guys who plan in advance. So which startups help companies plan? None. So here's an opportunity. So the state of the industry as I see it, and a bunch of people who we talk frequently and we lament security, is that antivirus is really a dead and dying offering. But it's curious. If you look where the antivirus people are today, every antivirus company is scrambling to position themselves as a guy who can take care of state-sponsored security. I'm not going to say APT, old. But it's a way for them to evolve their companies to survive, because they cannot survive with just antivirus. But the guys who are winning now, like FireEye, other guys, are the guys who have the most number of nodes across the net at peering points to collect data. So the guys who are in data collection in real time, those are the guys who are going to win. Because signatures don't work, you have to collect the threat in real time and get it to your customers. So what we think is going to be very important is real time versus the previous forensic approach to solving problems. Forensics, you don't have enough time to figure it out. The other thing that VCs are hugely interested in is behavioral analytics of people, network traffic, packet flows, and the idea here is to build heuristic tools that learn, to a degree, maybe with some human assistance, what is going on, and then to publish that out quickly. Until you get a tool that can learn what is right, you're not going to know what is wrong. You cannot know what is wrong by a signature. You cannot know by many different ways. How do you visualize this? Who does security visualization tools? No one. So with that, let me give you an idea of what's not working. And please, if anyone who works on these things, it is not my intent to insult you. Over my years in engineering, I worked on many things that were total failures, and I do not have those on my resume, right? So what doesn't work? Full disk encryption, ridiculous, right? I mean, it gets in the way of the user doesn't use it. Firewalls that face the wrong way. You know what some of the large firewall manufacturers asked us for, to go and find for them as companies? Who builds micro-analytics into a router or a firewall? Think OpenStack. Who builds analytics where I, on a microsecond basis, can figure out what is requesting traffic being switched to a particular location or a particular port, what have you, or a particular connection, physical connection? Nobody. We want this on the microsecond basis, not what we have now, not SNMP, ridiculous. The other thing that's not working is fiddling around with permissions. I'd argue that once the organization gets beyond about 15 people, what happens is, to every organization, they merely open up the granularity of the rules. So you're either in engineering or you're in legal, these are the rules. Well, that certainly didn't help. The other thing that doesn't help is, look at all these acronyms on the last line. Do any of those mean anything to you guys? They don't mean a lot to me. But to a guy who is in management of the company, he can tell the CEO, oh, look, you know, I have followed this. I have all of these standards. The bad guys say, they're great standards. I don't pay attention to any of this. This is junk, you know. But huge industry in creating these standards that mean nothing, absolutely nothing, except when you get your certification. So it took me a while to put this slide together because after I stole it from somebody else's presentation, I had to update it, and these little tiny GIFs take forever to copy. So the issue here is, from a VC perspective, there are thousands of companies out there. And the question for you guys, if you are starting a company or you're thinking about a technology, is how do I get noticed? How do I build something that is important? How do all of these guys, how do I compete against all of them? And the answer is to be specific. So let me give you a cheat sheet. I am a big believer in VCs for dummies, like me. So I will tell you how to get, this is like one of those, entrepreneur, get them going speeches. This is what we use to evaluate companies that come in the door. Number one, and these solve in order. Think about this in your mind. These solve in order. When you are making a pitch to VCs, do this in this order. I guarantee it will work. Number one, what is a team? Are they world-class guys? Have they done this before? Do they want to work 90 hours a week? Sure, that's why they're there. But are they world-class guys? They don't have to be famous. That's not what we're asking for. We're asking for guys who have world-class skills. That's what we're seeking. And the team is everything. Because if we fund a company that has a junk team, crap, we can put in $100 million and it's going to fail. I know. The very first deal I did as a VC, $72 million went in. And on the last day, we said to the engineering guys, you're not really making what you said you were going to make, right? And they said, oh, no. So, without a good team, forget it. The second thing is, what is the technology that you are using? Are you doing something new? Is it something that is based upon computer science as opposed to PHP and MySQL? Is it something that is really important? It has an algorithmic-based approach. Can you prove it? Because if the technology is common, you have a much steeper ramp to go up to prove that it is unique and no one else can copy this, because certainly people will. Number three, how big is the market? Is it 50 million, 500 million, 5 billion, 50 billion? And how are you going to get the market? This is the question that trips up technology guys a lot, which is, I say the market is $50 billion. Well, what data supports your conclusion? Okay, do you know what the downside of saying the market is $50 billion is? How much money is it going to take you to put your company's name in front of 50,000 companies spending $100,000 each just in one region to get you noticed? So be careful of making up a market size that is unrealistic, because the first thought that goes through our head as VCs is, oh, huge worldwide market. Do you know how much it costs to establish a national brand, one brand, in the United States? Take a guess. $600 million in advertising. You're not going to get there. So the answer is, choose a market wisely, analyze it wisely, and then prove to us that you have an approach which makes sense. If you spend all of your very expensive VC money, which is your ownership in the company, if you spend that money and you give it to Eric and the guys over at Google, you've made them even wealthier. You made the king richer. No. You need to spend the money to make you richer. Eric is plenty rich. So the last thing that solves, again, in order, is finance. And the rule that we have is you can always find the money, always. Too many guys are worried, I am a Russian guy, I am this guy, I'm that guy. It doesn't matter. If you have a world-class team with world-class technology, you know where you want to sell it and how, finance is always there. The question for you to ask yourself is, if I bring investors to help me, can they do it? Can they help me? Or are they just what we call a 50-kilo bag of potatoes? That is a VC term for when you walk in the board meeting, all the guys are sitting at the board table and 6 of 7 are like this, all right? That's really helping the company a lot, right? I have one guy who I sit on a board with. He has his admin print out his emails, and he reads his emails on paper through the whole board meeting. What you want is someone who, when you say, you know what, I am missing a really good DevOps guy. I need a VP of DevOps. He says, oh, I can go call Adrian Cockcroft. He's now at Battery Ventures, but he was at Netflix. He thought he's the god of DevOps. I can call him. Just wait. That's the guy you want. So what I'm urging you guys is you all need to do due diligence on us. We do plenty of due diligence on you. It's no problem. We can do that forever. But you guys, when you ask a VC for money, you need to ask the VC, tell us what's good about you, your successes. What are you good at? Which areas do you not invest in? Don't ask them if they're stupid, because no VC will tell you he is stupid. They will all tell you, I am a genius, But realistically, you guys need to do your due diligence on us. The other thing that we see as VCs is when you take money, Series A, we call it the blue smoke round. Use the first money you get to prove that it doesn't catch fire. When I was at Sun, we were designing a new processor years ago, and a new instruction showed up. And it was called BHCF. And no one could figure out in a big engineering meeting what that meant. And of course, all being engineers, no one had the guts to stand up and say, I have no idea what that is. Who put that instruction in the instruction set? Until one guy put his hand up and said, ooh, I know what it is. It's branch, halt, and catch fire. And so what you need to prove with Series A is you do not let the blue smoke out. It works. That's all. That's all you should plan for with Series A. Don't go crazy. You don't want $50 million sales. Use the Series B, much more money to hire sales drones to all these guys. Use Series A to prove it works. Because if it works, and you have 5 customers who are willing to sign up, raising additional money is easy. Don't worry about profit. Take risks. Usually, the first mover wins. Do you guys know how many search companies are out there right now, approximately? They're about 155. The last time I looked, there were 2 that own 97% of the market. About the other 153, it's going to be embarrassing. So, first mover. Be a first mover, don't be second. So, I'm sorry I could not split this up, but the golden rule is do something which the customer needs and can't do for themselves. Solve their pain. Ask the customer what's killing you. So, use recent work around Docker, Elastic, whatever, to do rapid spin-up VMs. There's a lot of work around this. There's some research going on at Berkeley about microsecond spin-ups and such, which you can use for isolation on a per connection basis doing things like connection establishment. A lot of work there. Look at continuous randomized testing. If you look at what the guys at Netflix did, single sweeping is toast. It doesn't work anymore. But what Netflix does is they have what they call the simian or monkey army. They have processes that run around the network, and they clip off network connections, they break databases, they attack things, they try to kill. And they call them things like the security monkey, the chaos monkey. Automation of bad environments is a good thing. Try to do that. The other thing we see that we look at a lot is multi-tenant crypto for multi-tenant cloud environments where somebody's managing the keys to make sure that this guy's data doesn't end up with those. Very few guys do that. Very few guys can prove data commingling. In other words, is my data mixed with his? Go to Amazon, call up Bill Voss, who's the vice president of Amazon Web Services, and say, can you prove to me that my data is not commingled with Juniper's? And the answer is no. So who does that? So the other thing that we're really big on, these next 2 points, is behavioral analytics and behavioral analysis. Not only human to human, machine to machine, flow to flow. That is the hottest thing right now. A company that I'll cover in just a sec just got $100 million to do this. Anybody who knows how to handle statistics but collect in a heuristic way, whether you use any type of AI, it's up to you, what's going on in the network without prior knowledge, that's a big opportunity. Also, we're looking at unstructured data analytics, but also people are now using things like Cassandra for eventual consistency as a security tool, which is kind of interesting, which is, it wasn't consistent here, I made it consistent over there, but something changed. Aha. So they're kind of using an inverse version of Cassandra. Kind of slow and interesting. Kind of slow, but still interesting. The other thing that's really changing is if you look inside a big data center, you know where the internet ends? At the top of rack switch. What does that mean? But what's even more important to us is everybody's going in memory, right? Whether it's a Hadoop guy or it's somebody who's using GridGain, one of these guys who is putting things in memory, no packets come out on the wire. Remember the whole flap last year with Docker and how the fact that you could essentially go from one Docker container to another and there was no containment? Well, that's been fixed, but certainly not fixed across all the VM environments. So who does an in-memory firewall? Who does in-memory behavioral analytics? So to give you an idea of the market size of any of these things, the last point is just data leakage protection was a $665 million market in the US alone. One country, 1 year, one product. So you can hit it big with doing just one thing really well. So some of the last opportunities are translating CVs and cert notices and all to something that people can use. Also, what's going on with Internet of Things traffic analysis? I don't know. And of course, with all the work on BIOS and some kind of sub-ROSA infection of firmware on motherboards, who's working on that? And the last thing is, most mobile network operators these days are all IPv6, right? It's the only way they keep these numbers of devices up. Who does IPv6 analysis really well? I mean, I know somebody from build a tool like Scapy, right, that you can use to go bash on IPv6, but who's specializing in IPv6 security for mobile operators? Well, I certainly would. There are only a couple of billion people using the darn things out there. That's another huge opportunity. So here's some guys doing interesting stuff. Automated code analysis points straight to the bad code, so guys who aren't geniuses can fix it. A company called Tinfoil. Think of it as a step beyond Nessus, but with a pointer back into the system, to the calls that are doing the bad stuff. A ton of people are using watchdocs, encryption at rest, all documents, selective decryption with selective blowing away of the keys, so that at any time you can pull it back. Not realistically pull it back, you can make it go away. They even have their own little viewer for documents so that you can, as you read it, it zooms in closer and closer so some guy can't look around across your shoulder. Pretty clever. Secure, and that's watchdocs. We looked at Varonis, secure private cloud, multi-tenant. They look at unstructured data, kind of good guys. This company, Intralinks, they do secure enterprise collaboration, and they're used in huge numbers by the drug discovery guys. The amount of money that's involved in things like drug discovery is tens and tens of billions of dollars. So keeping the collaboration between experimentalists, researchers, and drug trial operators all secret while they're all allowed to talk, that's a big deal. They do one thing. This is the company that just received a couple of $100 million, Illumio. So what Illumio does is microsegmentation of networks. They essentially break the net into little tiny chunks, and they essentially say traffic cannot flow between these chunks until I say it can. And they keep track of who's going across which chunk. Very nice. A couple of guys who are doing heuristic non-signature-based stuff, Cylance, and the last two are behavioral analytics guys to go look at, Veracode and FortScale. Okay, so when the folks here asked me to do this talk, I actually put in that the title would be VC Perspective of Security Opportunities in Silicon Valley and Who Has the Worst Security in the World. But that got left out, so I apologize, but I will now entertain you with what I have run across. Who has the worst security in the world? Take a guess. Well, it's not. It should be obvious. It's a startup. They have no money to spend on security. It's laughable. Actually, crying is more like it. So, do you say these words? Do you? Of course the source code is on every machine all the time. How silly of you to even ask. The source code is everywhere. Well, okay. I am an engineer. I do not maintain servers. I do not maintain AWS. That is for sysadmin guys. We have none of them, so go away. Passwords on access points are blank. If you go to Fry's Electronics in Palo Alto, the block before Fry's, please drive by with your AeroCrack, whatever you want. And then you realize, I don't need AeroCrack. Here's an AP with no password, and you know what? Oh, look, I can go NFS mount. The servers will all source code. Nice. Logs? I don't need no logs. I'm too busy. I am an engineer. I'm writing code. Logs, go away. Here's one that I love. Engineering will rebel if they don't have root access to everything. The woman who, Rhonda McLean, who went into Bank of America to revitalize their security, take a guess how many firewalls and Cisco routers they had. They had about 1,400 just in the US. Guess how many engineers had passwords to all 1,400? All? Okay. We have had machines physically stolen, etc. We also, the latest one is we have guys say, would you like the password to our Git repo of all of our source code? Oh, sure. Sounds great. I'd love it. Drives us crazy. But what's even more astounding is that dumb VCs put $20 million in and watch the product being stolen. If I was a bad guy, wouldn't I wait till the day that you released the product and said, oh, great, I can now snapshot the repo and I've got a $20 million investment for nothing, which is exactly what is happening, exactly. So look at the second point from the bottom. About a month ago, in the New York Times, I don't have a laser pointer, but I can point. I do better than a laser pointer. I use a finger. So this was a month ago. 3% US gross domestic product of $14 trillion is being stolen via the net for trade secret theft. Okay, that's a big number. And guess who's helping? Startups. So please, don't be one of those startups. I was involved in one, you'll like this. The bad guy physically broke in, this is great, and he picked up the server with a $20 million worth of source code, all the test harnesses, and all of the debug, all of it fully instrumented and debugged, and carried it out. Man, he got the wrong machine. We are safe. Everybody was like, yes, this is great. The guy was a doofus. Problem was, they sent email out to all their friends. Guy's a doofus. Came back 2 nights later, got the right one. 20 million bucks out the door. So do you think these guys got funded the second time around? I don't think so. So let me give you guys a piece of advice, just as a polite advice. If you come to a VCs and you say, I've got a great idea, and you do those 4 things, you know, where you've got the team, the technology, the market, and the finance locked up, and you say to the VCs, and I care a little bit, even a little bit, about my security, the average VC will probably say, what? But some guys will say, hey, I got it, I understand, and it might help you get funded. So with that, I will stop, say thank you very much, and as long as you do not throw anything, questions? Hold on 1 sec while I turn this on.
По-русски, по-английски спрашивать или как? I should ask English or Russian? Do you have the...
I do stand by.
Yes, can you hear me? Are you on the right channel? Can you hear me? 1, 2, 3, can you hear me? Okay. Jeffrey, could you please tell us about the latest startups, where Almaz Capital invested? Why they selected those very startups, and what's the result?
Startups in which Almaz Capital has invested money, why they invested in these startups, and how their goals?
Sure. Would you like a particular category or just those ones that have been massively successful? I will leave the failures out.
Just about you think they are the most, the best, or you like them?
Well, I will only tell you the ones I am on the board of because they are the best. No, we have invested since 2007. We are in our second fund now. We had $75 million approximately in Fund 1. We did Yandex, Quick, several companies like that in Fund 1. And in Fund 2, we're doing a number of other companies. And our model is to fund guys here to do development, but we will build the company out internationally in the US because it is easier to do that. And so some of the companies that we are invested in, one company is an Internet of Things company. They build LED streetlights, and each streetlight has a Linux single board computer and up to 30 sensors on each light. We take all the data back from all 30 sensors, we bring that into our cloud, and then developers write applications against that. So the light pays for the computer, the reduction in electricity pays for buying the whole thing. The fact that you can write apps that actually provide some value to people, we've been surprised at the diversity of, a success is defined by, I could never guess that someone would do that. And so, for example, with whole areas of cities covered with streetlights which have sensors, up to 30 sensors, temperature, video, vibration, audio, wind direction, wind speed. One guy wrote an app, it does free parking spot detection with no reflectors or anything else on the street. Another guy, a city was really worried about snow accumulation during winter, so the snow did not collapse the roofs of buildings. So he wrote an app to measure snow depth. Railroad wrote an application because the lights are in their rail yard to detect leaking oil cars. So I'm not smart enough to think of any of these. That's one company. Another company that we're doing is doing an in-memory Hadoop. Actually, it's an in-memory database which has Hadoop and SQL interfaces. It's called GridGain. And they sit underneath something like an analytic package, and they make that package run up to 1,000 times faster. So this is what Apple uses to do the analytics on the logistics of the iTunes store, because they're running hundreds of millions. I don't know if you know this, but the iTunes store obviously is multiple instances around the world. And they're doing hundreds of millions of transactions a day of moving new content across all of these data centers. And they actually have to schedule it so they get the popular stuff in first before the junk goes in. So that's one of the other companies. So we invest in a wide range of companies, but our interests are in things that an enterprise sees as a pain you are solving, security, anything to do with networking, anything to do with analytics. We're really big on analytics. We also have companies that do backup in a novel way. So we have a wide range. We do not say no to anybody. The things we say no to are like, and I'm not being funny, just the other day, we saw yet another flying car. You know, you drive down the road, you stop, you put the wings on either side, and then, you know, we say no to stuff like that because, but generally we look at anything. So does that answer your okay, great. Any other questions, comments? Yeah?
Hello, thank you for the talk. I wanted to ask if your fund invests in any Bitcoin-related technologies, and is it generally a hot topic in the Silicon Valley? Thank you.
Yes, it is a hot topic. You know, it's kind of funny. There are two classes of venture capital firm in Silicon Valley. There's those guys who don't have $5 billion to invest, and those that do. And those that do put $1 billion into Airbnb or into something of that nature, and everyone else says, I wish. The guys who are investing in Bitcoin right now are those big guys, because in a stock market or any type of market, you try to create the market first. Then you try to populate the market with transactions. So the Bitcoin guys are trying very hard now to tie Bitcoin to some external metric. Not so much currency, but they want the stamp of approval that they can trade it into some legal trading system. And they're pretty close. There are a couple of people who are pretty close. The question is, then what? Does it turn into another credit card? Does it get re-regulated? We don't know. But there's some guys like Andreessen and others who have a specific fund dedicated to just Bitcoin. And that's a pretty serious bet. If you have just Bitcoin-related investments and you're putting tens of millions of dollars behind it, there's huge interest. And the interest really comes from the fact that this is the first time you can have a distributed, double-declining balance sheet across the entire network. And it's usable not only for Bitcoin, but for anything else where you want to track, record, and repudiate any transaction. So this distributed nature is what's got a lot of people interested. Anybody? Yes, please.
Jeffrey, could you say your opinion about IoT? What is this? Internet of Things is next marketing bullshit, or it's trend for 10 years ahead?
No, it is current marketing bullshit, not next marketing bullshit. It is current. So thank you for the question. The reason is, as soon as we coin a new term, by the way, I tell each company that we work with, quick, before anything else, make a new term like synthetic metric of network performance. What does that mean? I don't know, but the marketing guys can make huge noise with it. What the Internet of Things really is, it is a hope that all of the sensors that are out there can somehow be stitched together. And there are two sides to this. There's all the stuff that's out there now that you're going to have to grapple with because it's legacy stuff. Thermostats. A thermostat was never designed to be networked to a thermostat in India. Come on. There's all this legacy stuff. Then there's the forward-looking stuff that is designed to be networked using something like low-power Bluetooth, which is of enormous interest to people. And that's the stuff that we're interested in. We think the people who are going to try to unify everything with massive APIs and all the rest of it, they're going to fail. The reason is you can't. There's just too much stuff out there that's legacy stuff. But if you choose a segment, say you're like our company Sensity. They do street lights. That's the IoT they do. And they happen to outfit all kinds of sensors over that street light, but they're not trying to do IoT inside cars. They're not trying to do it inside houses. They're only trying to collect data about their customers' traffic of any type, and then allow people to write apps. So the argument that I'm going to make about IoT is that the real opportunity is not trying to is to make your mind get stuck about how I write an all-inclusive API that I force the entire world to adopt. You guys are smart. You've been there 100 times. Never going to happen. Never, 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 you know? Never. So the question is, can you write an API that addresses one class of device? That will cause people to say, you know what? These are smart guys. I need to go talk to them because they conclusively figured out they know the characteristics of that device. So I'm a big fan of this company, BitStew, in Vancouver, Canada, because the devices they chose to manage and to deal with were smart tower meters. They're not Silver Spring networks. They don't collect the data. They go out on the network and say, no, 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 these sensors look like they're degrading, probably a bad Wi-Fi, a bad mesh network connection. What's the trouble? So there's a lot of opportunity not in necessarily doing the Internet of Things as opposed to monitoring, securing, analyzing. So we pose a simple question to guys who come in with IoT proposals to us. What's the battery life and how do you know when it's dead? Oh, I know when it's dead because it's not talking to me anymore. Well, who's going to go to northern Alaska to change the battery? Did you decide to have the thing notify us maybe before it was dead? That's an excellent idea. Next company. So we look at IoT really as separate pools of devices. The thought, the hope that they're going to be unified in some grand thing will never happen. So, okay. Any other questions? None? Okay. Thanks, guys.